Right now, my voice is essentially hacking into your brain. You are sitting somewhere, looking at a screen, and the invisible sound waves I am producing are carrying complex thoughts, vivid images, and ancient stories straight into your mind. We take this superpower completely for granted. We chat with friends, listen to podcasts, and tell jokes every single day without a second thought. But the truth is, the simple act of human speech is one of the most complex, beautiful, and hard-won evolutionary achievements in the history of our planet. It took millions of years of tiny, accidental anatomical shifts to bring us to this exact moment. Of course, we aren't the only creatures on Earth that communicate. Whales sing haunting melodies across vast oceans. Elephants send low-frequency vibrations miles through the ground. And crows can pass incredibly detailed warnings to one another. Yet, the sheer variety of sounds humans can produce and seamlessly combine into language is completely unmatched. It is the defining feature of what makes us human. But there's a problem. Spoken words do not leave fossils behind. To figure out when we first found our voice, scientists have to become detectives, looking for ghostly echoes in the ancient bones of our ancestors. To understand where it all began, we have to rewind between 400 and 360 million years ago. This was the era when the very first ancient creatures crawled out of the water and adapted to life on land. To survive, they evolved two vital tools: air-breathing lungs and a flexible, movable tongue. Millions of years later, controlling these two exact systems with absolute split-second precision would become the bedrock of human speech. Let us fast forward to a time closer to us. Between 8 and 6 million years ago, our direct lineage, the hominins, split away from the ancestors of chimpanzees and bonobos. Today, chimps are our closest living relatives, and they are incredibly intelligent. They use gestures, facial expressions, and vocalizations to navigate complex social worlds. Yet, despite decades of researchers trying to teach them, they physically cannot speak like us. And as it turns out, our earliest hominin ancestors couldn't either. The first real clue in this prehistoric murder mystery comes from a fragile fossil found in Africa. It belongs to a juvenile Australopithecus afarensis, who lived over 3 million years ago. Within this fossil, scientists discovered a tiny, U-shaped structure called the hyoid bone. This little bone sits right in your neck, just beneath your jaw. It is entirely unique because it doesn't connect to any other bone in your body. It just floats there, suspended by a web of muscles and ligaments, acting as the ultimate anchor for your tongue. When scientists looked closely at this 3 million-year-old hyoid, they noticed a massive red flag. It didn't look like ours. Instead, it was almost identical to the hyoids found in modern chimpanzees and gorillas. In apes, this specific shape supports large, inflatable structures called laryngeal air sacs. These air sacs help primates make their calls booming and loud, and prevent hyperventilation during long displays of dominance. But these air sacs come with a heavy evolutionary trade-off. They introduce deep, low resonances into sounds, practically blurring the boundaries between different pitches. If humans had these air sacs today, our speech would sound muddy, muffled, and incredibly difficult to understand. Because Australopithecus had a hyoid built for these sacs, it is safe to say they could not produce the clear, distinct speech sounds we use today. And for a very long time, that single, delicate fossil was the only piece of the puzzle we had. The hyoid rarely survives the brutal passage of time, leaving a massive 3 million-year silence in the fossil record. So, when exactly did the silence break? During that 3 million-year gap in the fossil record, our evolutionary family tree went through massive, radical changes. The ancient Australopithecines faded into extinction, and our own genus, the genus Homo, stepped onto the stage. These ancestors were bolder, smarter, and they eventually began migrating out of Africa, spreading deep into the untamed landscapes of Asia and Europe. To find the next chapter of our story, we have to travel to a dark, mysterious cave site in northern Spain known as the Pit of Bones, or Cima de los Huesos. Deep inside this cave, archaeologists made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Hyoid bones belonging to a species called Homo heidelbergensis, dating back roughly 450,000 years. This ancient species holds a special place in our history, as they are widely considered to be the common ancestor of both the Neanderthals and us, Homo sapiens. Even though these ancient Spanish hyoids were incomplete, the surviving fragments were undeniable. They looked nothing like the chimp-like hyoid of the older Australopithecines. Instead, they were nearly identical to the hyoid bones sitting in your throat right now. This meant that nearly 500,000 years ago, these hominins had completely lost their laryngeal air sacs. Their throats were literally clearing up, opening the door for a completely new world of acoustic potential. But a human-like hyoid bone is only part of the equation. To speak the way we do, you also need the right architectural geometry inside your throat. Think of your upper vocal tract as a complex musical instrument split into two distinct chambers. First, there is the horizontal part, your mouth. Then, there is the vertical part, the pharynx, which sits right between the back of your mouth and your voice box. In adult humans, these two chambers are almost perfectly equal in length. This precise 1-to-1 proportion is our acoustic secret weapon. It is the exact geometric shape required to produce three fundamental, sharply contrasting vowel sounds: A, I, and U. Think about it. Almost every single human language on Earth relies on these three vowels because they are so acoustically distinct. They are incredibly hard to mishear, even across a crowded, noisy room or a windy savanna. If you look at a chimpanzee or even a newborn human infant, their vertical pharynx is much shorter than their horizontal mouth chamber. Because of this restricted geometry, they physically cannot produce those sharp, clear vowel sounds. For decades, many scientists believed that our heavily muscled extinct cousins, the Neanderthals, suffered from this exact same limitation. The assumption was that they had short throats and long mouths, making their voices sound strange, high-pitched, and restricted. However, the pit of bones offered a groundbreaking way to test this theory. Scientists found a nearly complete skull with its neck vertebrae miraculously intact, allowing them to reconstruct the exact 3D dimensions of its ancient vocal tract. The results were nothing short of fascinating. The horizontal section was only slightly shorter than the vertical section. In fact, its proportions were remarkably similar to those of a 10-year-old human child today. And as we all know, a 10-year-old can speak, sing, and pronounce every vowel perfectly. This 500,000-year-old ancestor had the physical machinery to do the exact same thing. As time marched forward, this advanced vocal geometry became even more refined. When researchers reconstructed the throat of an adult Neanderthal who lived in France between 50,000 and 70,000 years ago, they found the exact same human-like proportions. He too possessed a vocal tract capable of producing the full, rich tapestry of sounds that form human speech. The physical barriers to talking were vanishing across the prehistoric world, but being able to make a sound doesn't matter if no one can hear it. The physical evidence for Neanderthal speech doesn't stop at throat geometry. Over the years, scientists have unearthed two more Neanderthal hyoid bones that offer an even deeper glimpse into the past. One, discovered in Spain and dating back 43,000 years, was described by researchers as virtually indistinguishable from a modern human's. The other, found in the Kabara cave in Israel, is around 60,000 years old. To look beyond the surface, scientists put this Israeli hyoid through advanced, high-resolution CT scans to analyze its internal microscopic structure. You see, living bone isn't like dead rock. It's a dynamic, living tissue. Over your lifetime, it constantly remodels and reshapes its interior architecture based on the physical stress and pressure put on it by your muscles. If a Neanderthal was rapidly using the muscles of their tongue and throat to produce complex, rapid-fire speech just like we do, the internal architecture of their hyoid bone would bear the exact same microscopic signatures. When the scans came back, that is precisely what the scientists saw. Both the inside and the outside of the Neanderthal throat were undeniably built for human-like speech. But as any good communicator knows, making sounds is only half the battle. You also have to be perfectly tuned to hear them. While fossilized throat bones are incredibly rare, ancient skulls are much more common, and they hold a treasure trove of information about how our ancestors listened to the world around them. Deep within the temporal bones of the skull lie the delicate, intricate structures of the inner ear, including the three tiniest bones in the human body, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. When we look back at early hominins like Australopithecus, we find a strange hybrid auditory system. Their first ear bone looked remarkably human, but the other two looked almost exactly like those of a chimpanzee. When scientists modeled how these creatures would have heard the world, they discovered that these early ancestors were tuned into a very specific range of mid-frequency sounds. something uniquely different from both modern humans and modern chimps. The true shift toward human hearing only began when our own genus, Homo, arrived. Fossils of Homo erectus show the first major steps toward a modern ear, and by the time we return to the Neanderthals and the hominins of the pit of bones, the transformation was complete. They had lost that specialized mid-frequency sensitivity, but they had unlocked something infinitely more valuable: the ability to clearly hear high-frequency sounds. This upward shift in frequency is one of the most critical milestones in the entire story of language. In human speech, high frequencies are absolutely essential for distinguishing consonants, especially those sharp, quick, hissing sounds like T, K, F, and S. While many animals can produce long, vowel-like cries, the strategic, rapid-fire use of consonants is what truly separates human language from the rest of the animal kingdom. Consonants are the borders. They allow us to frame our words, pack them with dense meaning, and build complex, infinitely variable sentences. By the time we look at our closest extinct relatives, all the anatomical pieces were perfectly in place. They had the precise throat geometry for vowels, the internal bone structure for speech muscles, and the high-frequency ear anatomy required to decode consonants. Does this definitively prove that Neanderthals or Homo heidelbergensis sat around the fire speaking a fully formed language? The honest answer is, we still don't know for sure. It remains one of the greatest, most fiercely debated topics in science. Because words vanish into the wind, we may never have a definitive answer. It often comes down to how we choose to define language itself. But what we can say with absolute certainty is that there was no physical or anatomical barrier holding them back. They had the hardware to make the sounds, and the hardware to hear them. And when you look at the archaeological record, how they cared for their sick and injured, intentionally buried their dead, and crafted beautiful ornaments to adorn their bodies, it is clear they possessed a deep, profoundly human-like emotional world that demanded to be shared. Today, we are the last hominin standing on this planet. Our ancient cousins are long gone, leaving us alone to piece together the echoes of our shared past. But as you go about your day today, speaking to your loved ones, laughing at a joke, or just listening to a story, take a moment to appreciate the millions of years of evolutionary history riding on every single breath you take. We are a species built for connection, carrying an ancient, beautifully refined evolutionary symphony right inside our throats. Thank you for exploring this deep history with me today. If you felt a connection to this journey through time, make sure to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold stories from our planet's incredible past. Until next time, stay curious and take care.